Okay, so this is the first video of two where we're going to restore an implant at number 5. We're going to use two methods: a single one piece, that's today's video, monolithic restoration. In the second video will be a two-piece aesthetic zirconia core with an Emax over the top. I chose this case because so you can see the difference between what would happen if you chose between these two and why you have some limitations with the abutment in crown, minimal thickness requirements, obviously because you have two materials instead of a single monolithic, and where this will fit in your practice. So let's do this as the first video. We're going to actually go down here and we're going to select a screw retained or screw-mentable restoration using a monolithic. So we're going to do design mode, biogeneric individual. We have it set up for CEREC 4D abutment. Now you guys probably have the updated libraries where you have a few more options. And again, whatever zirconia you're going to use that will qualify with the CEREC and to match to your DIO implants will be fine. My device is virtual. We use in-lab cam here, and then we're going to set up the case. The tie base that we're going to use is the Dentsply Sirona Others. We're going to go down to the bottom and select the OTS 4.0L that corresponds to the DIO Regular Wide and 4.0 platform. So we're going to use that. And then the scan body type, we're going to use, I personally use the scan post and the scan body. The scan post and the scan body, it's easier for me to see that the guidelines for the scan post and the guideline for the scan body line up evenly because they're usually above the gingiva. The tie base sits really low, so I can't really see sometimes whether or not those are lined up perfectly because I can seat that fully and still be off. It doesn't have a one-to-one connection. So sometimes when you seat the tie base and scan body, even though you've sat it all the way down, it's not in the right orientation and can throw your scans off. And that actually happened to us in a case here in the school. So I tend to use the scan post because I can see it. Yes, it incurs more cost, so you have to kind of figure that out, but there we go. So we're going to scan post, and then the scan post we're using is the TS 4.0 that corresponds to the tie base. So we're going to do tooth number 5. So we're going to set that up. And let's move that. And so now this is the case details for a screw retained crown using compatible DIO Navi Regular wide implants with a 4.0 platform. We do not do anteriors or the narrow because it's not compatible with the DIO narrows. So that's a real big caveat to all this. These are going to be posterior only in the most ideal location that would warrant a tie base versus a custom abutment or sending out to have different materials that are not Emax or zirconia. Okay, so let's go on to acquisition. Okay, we're in acquisition, and I just want to go over some of the scans that we have here. This is the soft tissue model for the upper that we're working on, tooth number 5. You can see the outline of the soft tissue. We utilize a lot of CO2 lasers here. Obviously, it's safe for the implant. We don't use a diode for the fear of superheating the implant. And so we use CO2 lasers or erbium YAG to clear this tissue out. I would have liked a little bit more personally, but again, this was a case that was done, this was not done by a guy, this was freehand, and that's why you'll see that it's placed a little bit more mesial than we would have liked it, a little bit more mesial and a little bit more lingual. We do like that 2 millimeters in front for bone thickness. And that might have been a limitation, but I still would have liked this a little bit more distal. And that will play a little bit bigger role in the two-piece in the second video. Okay, so there is our upper jaw. There is our opposing. It's an opposing, and that's our buccal bite. be sure you take a bilateral, non-continuous bite, right side, then left side, non-continuous. Research shows that basically doing a continuous bite can cause overpenetration of the model, causing your restorations to either be too high or out of occlusion, depending on what side it decides to overpenetrate or underpenetrate. So again, and then there is our scan body. Biggest thing with a scan body is making sure that those guidelines, and this is why I chose the scan post, because I can see them line up with the scan body guideline. Sometimes when the tie base is way down here and the gum tissue is a little bit more, above, I can't see that on the tie base because it's hidden, and I'm not sure it's all the way down. And that, like I said, has happened a few times here in the clinic. A little bit of missing data. Again, we want to try to eliminate that or any melting, especially on this occlusal, just to make sure that this point is referenced for the scan body head so that we know the distance of that implant. So this looks pretty good. I would say it's a 98% good. So this one would move on in the clinic. So let's go to model. Here is the model. A couple things on the model. If you have scans, bites, accurate, your set model axis would be pretty much ideal. That looks pretty good. If you're getting weird designs, always come back to the set model axis and see whether or not this is correct. A lot of times fixing a lot of, and this is just CEREC in general, fixing a lot of the design, wonky designs comes back to set model axis. Let's go to edit baseline. Now, a lot of people do not utilize this as much as it should be, I personally think, but essentially what you're doing is you're telling you can move this and reset it, but I just like to use the gingival mask, especially if you're using tissue formers or you're using a laser to shape the tissue. Now I can just use this to shape where I want to put the emergence profile for this. And I'll do this slightly sub G on the single piece, the one piece. And there we go. So I like to do that. So actually I don't like this part. So I just see that I almost did that. Instead of going through in the design and raising and lowering it, which you can do, and I just like to do it beforehand. I feel like it just gives me a better, less having to manipulate it later. Okay, so once we do that, we're going to go through the design, and now we're going to go and shape the monolithic crown relative to that tie base, give it more ideal occlusal or ideal implant protected occlusion and shape and design. Remember, implants do not like to have off-axis load. They like to be centered. The problem with this case is that you can see that it's almost off-axis load. We got one point here that we have, and that's close to the implant center. So we're going to use that, and we're going to really reduce our marginal ridge strength. And we're going to use the articulating function in CEREC to really kind of see where our excursives are. So yeah, so now we're back here. So we're just going to reshape that. I'm going to get it ideal where we like it. And then from there, fix any details that are not correct. So, okay, real quick, I'm going to do a little bit of design, move the cuss tips out without causing any cantilevering, and then bring down the occlusal height. So that's more ideal. I'll take a little bit more time here designing it. And then the marginal ridges, like we all know in CEREC, are just a tad bit off. So I'm just going to bring that down. Bring that down, flatten that, flatten that. Okay. I'm going to get it really close, and then we'll move on. And that looks pretty good. I don't like that cuss tip on there, so we're going to bring that over. Bring that down. Okay. And maybe just a little bit of smoothing some of those areas. So, okay, we're going to call that good. We're going to turn off the display objects on the upper jaw, and we're going to just shape this area down here. This is that area of the edit gingival mask where I put the margin line, and it's just a quicker, it's really pretty much ready to go. So I don't really have to do much to it, and that's what I like about it. You can raise and lower it after this in design, but to be honest with you, the less manipulation, the better for me. And the next thing is just making sure the occlusion is correct. Like I said, we try to get a long axis, contact right there, and we like to take off the marginal ridge so we don't have an off axis. And you're pretty much almost done. Aesthetically, I can fix some things here. This contour needs to come up, close that embrasure space and all that good stuff. But really, well, I'll let you do that in your own units. But it's pretty much good to go. So now the next thing, what we're going to do is, and which I like to do, is set up the articulator. I didn't do that at the beginning, and I always forget. But if we just hit articulator under administration, hit articulation, go back to design, and then let that facially generated pathway come up. And since we're working on the upper, we want to put on the lower. And now anything that's showing through is showing excursive interference on that restoration. And like all implants do not like that. So we're going to bring that down. And the way you bring that down is you just go over to Tools, Forms, Remove, and then highlight anything that changes color. If it changes color, we're just going to bring that down till it's just barely there, or just slightly out, and then we're done. We're going to turn off the lower facially generated pathway, and then that is going to be as close as we can get it to centric. And you're going to put some composite in this area, so we want to make sure that it doesn't chip away either. So we'll put down the lower on again, and we'll take a look at it, and it looks really pretty much close. We want to be able to hold centric when the patient is biting down with solid force, but when they're just gently biting, the slide got a slide shim stock through. So shim stock hold. So, okay, at this point, we can fix some aesthetics, and then from there, we are going to just send it on its way, and we'll mill the crown. I mean, that's how fast these single units go. Real quick, let me go back real quick. I turned the minimal thickness off for the two-piece video, and I didn't turn it back on. I just want to turn that back on so you guys can see it. No minimal thickness issues. Contact's really hot, really strong. Obviously, I need to bring that down. So let's bring that down real quick before we send it on its way. Just so you guys can see it. And we kind of here at the school are kind of in the yellow land, only because we'd rather have it a little stronger and have the students take it back. And then, slowly work on improving that. Okay, so now let's send it to manufacture. And that is our single monolithic restoration that we'll be sending downstairs. Again, like I said, we can fix a little bit of this contouring and stuff if you so choose, but that's how we do it. We utilize InLab, so we'll be moving that sprue in the actual InLab software, and you can do that yourself. But yeah, so that's it. That is how you set up for a single monolithic restoration. Those are the parameters. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll move on to the second video, which kind of uses the same restoration or same implant placement and using a two-piece aesthetic and the limitations based on where this implant was placed. Because it's placed a little bit more mesial, that aesthetic two-piece requires more material thickness and actually affects whether or not we can actually do that restoration. This really gives credence to why we would use, since we use DIO here in the school, we 100% place all our implants fully guided for that reason, so we can place it in the most ideal based on implant planning, restoratively driven implant planning, crown down implant planning from the beginning. So, okay, if you have any questions, if you're at the school, come and see me at my office. If you are not, if you're seeing this out in the interwebs, send me an email. Thank you. Have a great day.